welcome you all to the SUG Kolkata new webinar. Today we have Sebastian Winter with us, and I believe he needs no introduction. And he will guide us today on the building multi-site implementations at scale with XM Cloud. So do not want to waste your time. Sebastian, please, over to you.
Sure, no worries. Thanks for having me. As mentioned already before when I joined the call a few minutes earlier, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm always happy to meet or be at new user groups that I haven't been before and meeting new people. So during that presentation in general, feel free to ask your questions, usually at the end. However, if you're lost at a certain point, just speak up and let's clarify it immediately. I think we have enough time, also enough time for your questions at the end. I think that's also why we're all here. And all right, with that said, let's directly dive into it. Welcome everyone to this session about, already mentioned, building multi-site implementation at scale with XM Cloud. However, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sebastian. I'm a technical product marketer at Sitecore, and I'm mostly into XM Cloud, SXA, a bit into Content Hub One, stuff like that. I'm in IT for more than 20 years and even more than half of it within the Sitecore ecosystem. I was awarded twice as a technology MVP and I joined Sitecore approximately 6 years ago. Yeah, but enough of me. Let's get into things. I believe many of you are working in big enterprise or for big enterprise companies that offer services or products. And also your organization might be separated into independently working brands or, for example, regions. Let's assume you have markets across the globe, and we know that every region or country works differently. So you need different ways of communication tailored to your target audiences. Dependent on the level of autonomy of your regional offices, every office might run their marketing campaigns and activities, and all of them have set up their own channels, and that happens over time, right? But this can be quite costly when summing everything up, and every entity is developing their own sites, or if they do that, right? So now, wouldn't it make sense to consolidate efforts centrally and offer streamlined solutions to every regional office? So you can cut costs on development and therefore spend it on more sophisticated stuff. You can cut costs on hosting and you can cut costs on licensing. But now you need a vendor that can handle that for you. And no surprise, Sitecore has always been strong in serving enterprise companies with solutions at scale. For example, Sitecore XP or XM has been leading the market over years. And now XM Cloud continues on that route as a software as a service offering. So let's have a look on how we solved serving this example implementation with XM Cloud. So in this case, we're talking about the SUGCON sites. And let's see what tools helped us building that multi-site implementation. So we know the Sitecore community is huge, is a huge asset for Sitecore. And since 2014, the community takes the effort of running the Sitecore user group conference, aside all the user groups like this one here. And we name that short SUGCON, right? So starting in Europe, in the Netherlands in 2014, and then North America joined in 2015. India became a regular place for SUGCONs since 2018. And also in Australia and New Zealand, we have SUGCON since 2019. So all across the globe. Of course, each event is different organizational teams in the regions, different agenda, dates, locations, sponsors. And besides social media, websites are the place to get all required information. Where to get tickets, who's speaking when, what are the dates, are there special discounts for hotel bookings, and so on. Way back, we built the websites also in different Sitecore XP instances, one on Sitecore 9 using Azure Web Apps, and one on Sitecore 10 hosted on AKS. And the sites were independently managed by each organizational team. So pretty much the use case I described before. Now in 2022, XM Cloud was new. It was really fresh and we wanted to gain knowledge about it within Sitecore, within the developer advocacy team, and ideally by implementing a real world project. So beside the SUGCON sites that we wanted to re-implement with XM Cloud, we also wanted to manage the MVP site. So we wanted to have one solution, one XM Cloud instance, but independent front-end head application to serve the autonomy of each site. So the MVP site got implemented using .NET Core because it was on .NET Core before. And the SUGCON sites got implemented on using Next.js. The SUGCON umbrella site that we also have was added later just as static HTML. And the build and deployment pipeline was realized with GitHub Actions using the XM Cloud CLI. And we will talk about the whole DevOps process a little bit later. So once we had that live, we recognized that the SUGCON sites were never designed differently as we thought before. So we thought every team is going to implement their own sites. That's why we had different apps for it, right? But as an outcome of having 4 apps serving 4 sites that are mostly the same or that are completely the same, we also had copied basically the same code base and therefore had to fix bugs also 4 times if one appeared. So we wanted to be able additionally to maintain also the umbrella side with XM Cloud. So with the initiative of redesigning the SUGCON sites, we also wanted to try the architectural change of having one app that serves all SUGCON sites. And then the MVP side remained as is, basically. So in 2023, or end of 2023, we started the re-implementation of the SUGCON sites. We targeted the SUGCON Europe in Dublin. That happened in April last year. And we wanted to rebuild the SUGCON websites using, again, XM Cloud, but this time only one app that serves all Next.js-based websites, so all the SUGCON sites. And then we wanted to have Vercel as a front-end hosting. And of course, a team of community members joined us with different roles, some more front-end focused, some more experience with the Sitecore ecosystem. So pretty much a very, very general project setup with very general requirements. All other sites, we wanted to gradually migrate so we started with the European side, and then we wanted to gradually migrate all the other sites while the events appeared. And one thing was really important. We did not want to harm the existing sites. So we implemented everything aside the existing apps, but within the same solution. And we set up new sites also beside the existing ones. And once we were ready, we wanted to switch the DNS to route to the new sites at a certain point of time, and then decommission all the other sites and apps over time while the new implementation showed being successful. Why am I telling all of that? Because if we summarize, we basically tried 2 ways of architecting a multi-site solution with our code, which is on the one hand having one app per site, or having one app serving all sites, or a subset of sites. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages of each one. So if you have one app per site, this allows a very independent development of each site, meaning independent UIs, independent functionality, but also a potential duplication of code. On the other hand, if you go with one app that serves all sites, you have a unified centralized implementation on the one hand. You can share your UI and functionality commonly across all the sites. And you gain a simplified maintenance in terms of coding, but also in terms of the build and deployment pipeline. However, if you are going with, if you really need different applications per site, then probably the first way of doing it, here shown on the left side, is the one to go for. So there is no right or wrong here. You can either go with the one or the other approach. Just ask yourself, like, if you need the level of freedom, the level of autonomy for each site to have a dedicated app serving it, because you pay the price of raising also the maintenance costs. All right. So that's the first thing that you have to think about when building with XM Cloud, that you need to consider. Both ways are supported very well. Now, once you have your site built, you need to think of the site rollout. And no matter if you do a regional rollout or relaunch your brand sites, usually you start with one website, which is kind of your minimal viable product implementation. And once that is successful and you gain knowledge and you're ready to roll out the others, for example, regional sites, brand sites, or campaign sites. So then you would go and you create a template site from your first site that you created initially that contains what's most common across the sites that you will build next. This way, you have the least effort to get started with your next sites, basically. And then you basically create all the sites one by one from that templated site. Same we did with the SUGCON sites. Remember, we started with the SUGCON Europe site, and as this was the first event in the year, and usually you start with the smallest website or the one that has the least risk for your business. And then we used the SUGCON Europe site directly as a template. So we did not create a dedicated template because all the other sites were so similar that we could just use that directly and created the sites from that approach. Now, XM Cloud supports that in two ways of rolling out your site. On the one end, building a template site that you can clone, or building a site template. Sounds very similar, but let's have a look into the different approaches. Now, building a template site and clone it later on means that you build a real website just as any other. And as mentioned, you create the most common starting point, the most common features you create already for your website of a certain type. Again, brand sites, regional sites, campaign sites, you name it. So you have a common content architecture, you have already the starting point for common page designs, and all the features can be pre-configured already in like a 404 page or something like that. So this is usually derived from your first site implementation, as we've seen with the SUGCON Europe site. Once your template site is set up, you can run a clone site script that's available in Content Editor and get an exact copy with the references readjusted to your new site context. Cloning a site, so if you're longer in the Sitecore ecosystem, you know the cloning feature. Cloning a site doesn't have anything to do with the cloning feature as such, right? It's really creating a copy, an independent copy, and resolving all the references to the site context. Now, if you are rolling out, for example, regional websites, you probably also need to support different languages. You can run additionally an add site language script to add language versions. That doesn't translate your content, but it sets the basics of having another language implemented. By the way, a lot of features I show today are also available with the Sitecore XM or XP, so this one is one of them. Now, the second option is the site templating. Here you build a site template, meaning an installation description, which is based on Sitecore or SXA modules, and we will talk about modules also a little bit later. You can reuse those modules you have created along with your feature creation, and then create an installation description for your content architecture. Now, creating new sites has a slightly different and, as I think, better way of creating new sites. So that means in XM Cloud sites, you directly, when creating a site, you directly get a list of those site templates, as you can see here in the screenshot, and you just select it. So it's a much better user experience, especially then also for marketers. But of course, there are more multi-site related features. Let's have a little overview first and then dive into each of them. So I mentioned already that you can create and manage multiple sites in XM Cloud Sites, and you can manage also site collections. So XM Cloud Sites is basically the dashboard to keep an overview about your large scale environments. You can configure sites in XM Cloud rather than configuration files, which is easier to access and easier to maintain. You can use shared sites to share common content and configuration and simplify the maintenance of the website. You can easily link across your sites. The site manager helps you maintain your routing of websites, and then modules help you improving sites with adding new features, but only adding what is really needed for a particular site. So the site administration, basically. And you can create site-related roles and users to only grant access to users to sites that they need to work on. So let's have a closer look into each of those. As mentioned, XM Cloud Sites is the entry point for marketers and technologists to work on the experiences. Especially in large-scale environments, you can easily find sites using the search provided here in XM Cloud Sites. You can create and manage your sites from here and directly navigate to XM Cloud Page Editor. You can also enable the shared site feature from here, share content among sites within your site collection. So a very powerful tool, which we are constantly improving. Talking about site configuration. In XM Cloud Sites, you can administer your site, managing the host, for example, the languages that should be available to your sites or to your environment, and other site-related settings. This can be done in the site configuration or in the site definition. Let's talk about shared sites. Within the site context, you can create content centrally, so it can be used within one site, right? So you know that that's a common feature. This simplifies content management a lot, especially when you have to change content. You do that once and it applies wherever used. But sometimes you have content that is used by multiple sites. That can be global marketing content or something like terms and conditions. XM Cloud offers the capability to mark a site as shared and use the content across all other sites within the same site collection. But not only content can be shared, also configuration and items controlled by developers, something like the component variations that need to be configured, page and partial designs for common page layouts like header, footer, or blogs. The styling options offered through rendering parameters can be shared across sites. You can control what components are offered to the marketer through available renderings and share that across your site. So always maintain it once and share it with all the other sites so you don't have to duplicate work. You can control the placeholder settings and share that. You can share redirect maps, and of course, page templates are shared as well across all your site collections. Another feature I mentioned is cross-site linking. So sometimes you need to link across sites, and usually you would use an absolute link, but when a page moves, that absolute link is no longer valid. So with XM Cloud, you link across sites, keeping the relative information and transferring that later on into an absolute URL automatically. So in XM Cloud, you can mark sites as linkable, so they potentially become visible for other sites as a target to be linked to. And per site, you can select if you want to see only the site internal pages, if you want to see pages of other sites within your site collection, of course, only the ones that are marked as linkable, or if you even want to see all the pages from your whole XM Cloud instance, meaning also across site collections, again, only the ones that have been marked as linkable. So this is a great feature, I think. Talking about Site Manager. So within the desktop app of XM Cloud under PowerShell Toolbox, it's very well hidden, but it's there. You can find the Site Manager. This admin tool helps you to get an overview about the routing using different domains, subdomains, or virtual folders, and using the traffic light icons that you see on the left side of the screenshot. The Site Manager indicates whether a site can be accessed through the configured routing. So from here, you can resolve the conflicts by configuring proper hosts or virtual folders, or just moving the sites up and down in the list, because this list is the priority or the order of how sites are being resolved. All right, let's get to modules. So when building new features that consist of several configuration items, such as templates or renderings or media library items, and some more, they can be bundled into modules. Now, you can install such modules to one or many sites. Also, during the site setup, you get a list of modules, and then you can select what modules you want to install. So this way, you kind of decouple the deployment from a feature from the actual activation of the feature within the site or site collection. The module installation can be done either from a site or from a module perspective. So you can go to a site and see what modules are not yet installed, or you go the other way around to the module and see in what sites these modules are not installed yet. So this way you can just, with a few clicks, activate those features by installing the module, which means installing the items to the particular site. A very, very powerful feature. Yeah, and let's quickly talk about roles and rights management. There are usually two reasons why you want to apply roles to sites. First, if you only show to authors and marketers what's relevant to them, they are much more focused and not overwhelmed by the size of installations. Second, allowing only access to only particular sites mitigates also the risk of having content created in areas where it doesn't belong. So XMCloud supports you in generating standard roles, giving access to only particular sites, and you can later on fine-tune those if needed. Or of course, you can directly create custom roles to target the particular requirements you have in your project. Again, this is not dedicated to XMCloud. This can be also found in XM and XP. All right, let's get into deployment. So XMCloud consists of several parts that we can deploy to. And yeah, let's have a closer look on at the Sitecore XMCloud architecture. XMCloud consists of a core application, which is basically the authoring environment. We know that as a CM, so that was the name before. We are able to customize it through code deployments. However, be very careful with that. I definitely do not recommend to do that. There are usually more sustainable ways of augmenting your authoring activities. Also, auto updates might break when you change the core application. The core application also holds your items related to your sites. And additionally, XMCloud contains one or more node-based servers to the so-called editing host, that these run your head application for the purpose of serving the what you see is what you get experience for those editors, like the page builder or experience manager. For any public traffic, you want to host your head application on a rendering host. Of course, different providers have different features. We will talk about that separately, but usually they all care about scaling out your front-end hosting based on the incoming traffic, but also based on your budget. And your code solution is usually based on our XMCloud starter kits and contains the code to customize your XMCloud instance. Again, be very, very careful with that. The item configuration, and the code for your front-end application. Now, when you deploy, you can deploy to your XMCloud core instance. Again, be careful with that. But for example, also deserialize your items from your solution to your XMCloud instance to serve, for example, configuration of your features and sites. Now, when you deploy, you can deploy to your XMCloud core, and then, sorry, I'm mixed here. So where am I? Right. Additionally, sorry, I was lost. Additionally, you want your front-end apps to stay in sync with your configuration items. So you also deploy your apps to the internal and external editing hosts. Finally, you deploy your front-end application to your rendering host to change also the public appearance of your web application or website. Now, again, why am I telling all of that? Well, XMCloud offers two ways of building your deployment pipeline, and therefore you need to know basically how the architecture looks like and where you want to deploy to and how that works. Now, the two options are you can use our out-of-the-box pipeline, which comes with the XMCloud deploy application, or you can build your own custom pipeline using the XMCloud command line interface. Now, again, let's have a look on what fits where and what it includes. So If your scenario is supported, and we will talk about it when it might not be, but when it's supported, you should definitely go with the out-of-the-box XM Cloud Deploy pipeline. Your project will be connected to your source code repository when you set up everything, and each branch can be hooked up with an environment. So when changes get committed to one of those branches, that will trigger a deployment to the connected environment. It's really, really easy to set up. It's a 5-minute thing, and you have your environment set up, including the whole pipeline, and it's constantly improved by us, and you're benefiting from all the efforts we put in. So latest feature we provided, and by the way, you can see all the changes we do on the changelog on the developer portal, but the latest changes we provided are very interesting. So on the one hand, usually a deployment is done was done to both the XM Cloud instance as well as the editing host. Now that consumes time, and if you only did changes, for example, front-end changes on your front-end app, it was a bit of an annoying waiting for the deployment to your XM Cloud instance. Now, what we did was we can now distinguish and find out where you did your changes. Did you do it on the for the app, or did you do some item changes, for example, or even code changes for your CM instance? And then we decide where to deploy. That works pretty well and saves a lot of time in deployment. So definitely great deployment app. However, let's come to the scenarios where it might not be supported. Currently, we only support GitHub and Azure as source code repositories at the moment, and we only offer a node-based editing host internally. So if you go, or if you work with any other source code provider, or if you go with any technology not being based on Node, then you might want to go with the second option that I'm describing now. So what you will do then is you basically create your custom pipeline using any tooling, for example, GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, or you name it. And we provide for you the XM Cloud command line interface, or short CLI, that offers all required commands. So if you want to orchestrate your own build and deployment pipeline, you can easily do that. By the way, we also had to create our own custom pipeline using GitHub Actions, and because we used .NET Core for the MVP side. As this is not node-based and we had to provide an external editing host, we came up with a solution. However, it was not very complicated because most of the steps that we had to use were already provided by the command line interface. So it was just assembling it on a different application like GitHub Actions. All right, let's talk about head application hosting. So for sure, the major implementations done so far, or it was mainly recommended going with Next.js. So therefore, for sure, Vercel is the maintainer for Next.js and is definitely a great choice for hosting an XM Cloud run head application. And XM Cloud has also a native integration to connect to Vercel and directly deploy the head application to Vercel. But your requirements are unique. And as we also offer now Angular and .NET Core SDKs along with our Angular and .NET Core Starter Kit, you might have different requirements. So rather check the features set for each provider. Do they offer advanced support for front-end framework features like incremental static generation, middleware, serverless functions, but also how is the developer experiences in the tools offered? What are the costs? Probably a very important one. And what about scalability? And when you evaluate for an enterprise setting, make sure to look for security or single sign-on integrations, dedicated customer support. And last but not least, weigh out what's most important for you, right? So these are just questions that might help to guide you selecting a good front-end provider, meeting your requirements and your budget. Let's summarize. So when planning your multi-site implementation with XM Cloud, check if you can build one app serving all sites, or if you need one dedicated app per site, or even you might need to mix both approaches like we did, having one app for all the Next.js related sites and then one app for the .NET Core related sites. Can you go with the out-of-the-box deployment, or do you want to orchestrate a custom pipeline? Make that choice. Make use of one of the rollout features using site cloning or site templating, and choose your hosting provider based on your needs. With that said, here's a link to my blog that elaborates on that topic and also provides a list of resources that I compiled to create this presentation. There are videos about creating CI/CD pipelines by Rob Earlham, for example. It has a link to the XM Cloud introduction repo. So that's the repository that we open sourced that has the MVP side and SUGCON side implementation that I just talked about. So you find basically loads of real world examples in there. It's not a starter kit, but definitely worth checking out for examples. There are videos by Thomas Desmond about hosting providers, for example, and links to our Accelerate recipes about developer experience with Next.js and Multisite and all of that. So if you want to go deeper into that, definitely check out the resource link list. And again, yeah, we're at the end of this presentation. Thanks a lot. I hope that was valuable time spent for you and you got some takeaways, and we have plenty of time for questions. So let's see if there are any.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian. Please unmute yourself if you have any question, or you can write down in the chat also.
Don't be shy. Is anyone, maybe I may ask if anyone, is anyone working on XM Cloud projects already?
We did a kind of POC on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not worked on multiple sites, but we have developed a single site.
Which is a good start. I mean, and yeah.
We are also doing POC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. And we are thinking for now single website. We will switch to multi-site in upcoming months.
That's great.
Okay, I believe there is no question.
Sebastian, I have a question. So
Sure.
basically you said whenever we are publishing the content gets packed to, I mean, the pages get packed on the content delivery side, and then the edge will deliver to the website, right? That's what the XM Cloud do, correct? So my question is, if we have existing applications where very complex logic, very high coupled logic on the sometimes people are using handlebars or many static logic on the websites. So how we can change to the XM Cloud? Will it be any complexity on that, or it's XM Cloud is not good solution? Because we have currently that project, we are thinking of migrating to XM Cloud, but we have so many the integrations and you can say the renderings logics. So is it a good way, or it is a good approach to convert those projects into the XM Cloud?
So in general, I don't think XM Cloud can not handle what XP or XM handled before. So I think you can basically achieve everything that you achieved before, but due to the different architecture that this software as a service application provides, the solutions will be different. So talking about publishing, for example, you don't have a content delivery anymore. You're publishing to Edge. And that means you don't have logic applied to your delivery layer, basically. So you only deliver plain content, which means page content with all the components. And then your application has to handle what it gets, and also has to handle, for example, the routing or the link resolving of your application, right? So you have to think, or you have to think differently of not applying anything to the content delivery anymore because it's not there anymore. But a lot of logic will go into your head application or into kind of middleware. So that's the first approach. And then the second one, where you might have to rethink what you did before, is the content authoring adjustments, right? So I mentioned you can still deploy code to your XM Cloud authoring environment, meaning your CM. However, it's really, really not recommended, and there's usually a better way to do that. So what you can do is configuring, well, no, let's phrase it differently. XM Cloud has a lot of APIs, and you can use the APIs to get data out, process it, and get data in again, for example. And that would be rather the approach than customizing it directly in the XM Cloud instance. So you can have Azure functions, for example, that you trigger via use with an HTTP trigger. Then all of the data gets processed, and then once it's done, it has a webhook into XM Cloud and sends the data back. So when you do a migration, or when you're planning such a migration, you have to think of, or basically cluster your different customizations that you have done, and then say, well, this goes into the head app, this goes into an Azure function, this goes here, and this goes there. Sadly, I don't have that kind of like mapping. I was thinking about creating it, but I'm lacking time at the moment. But when you are planning that, that's definitely something that you should do, because it helps you also in your further projects, but it also helps you within the current project. I can just say I had a similar project with Content Hub. So Content Hub has not always been a SaaS application. It also was an on-prem installation before. And I was in a project with a customer, transferring them in the same situation, just Content Hub, not XM Cloud, from on-prem to SaaS, which has the same challenges. And understanding what part of the code in the on-prem world goes into the and where it goes into the XM Cloud world, or in this way into the Content Hub world in SaaS, made it really easier to make decisions, because you just say, in general, let's say a content handler goes there, and so every content handler will go into that new solution, right? So yeah, I can just tell you, you can achieve everything with XM Cloud that you were able to achieve with XP or XM before. The solution to it might be different.
So when we are saying the only content is publishing, right, XM Cloud, so that means the content plus the presentation, correct? Or
of course, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
It's XM Cloud is, even though it's phrased like that, it's not a pure headless content management system. It provides presentation information as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sebastian, there is another one from Chandan in the chat. For the front end part, we can use .NET, or if yes, which we should prefer, Next.js or .NET for the front end?
So let's say until mid last year, I think the clear recommendation was Next.js, because we had an SDK for it that was up to date with most features that we provided so far. We had a starter kit, and most of the examples you find in the documentation are based on Next.js. Now, we have created now an Angular SDK, which is near to feature par. I would call it, or I think they call it alpha release. That's the status for the Angular SDK and starter kit. And then the .NET Core one is, I think, in beta. So it's missing some features compared to the Next.js one. However, it is very close to feature parity with the Next.js one. So I think the main driver for you to decide is the knowledge you have in your team. So if you are basically a .NET company, then probably you want to take a look at the .NET Core front-end application implementation. In the SDK implementation and in the starter kit, you will find I think in the GitHub issues, you will find what's missing, and therefore you can also decide, okay, this is not in a state where I can start with. Again, they are alpha and beta, like Angular is alpha and .NET Core is beta. If you want to go, or if you have to go with a full grown, then that leaves you with Next.js, basically. Not sure if this answers your question.
And on the performance basis, which we should go on, means from performance perspective. Let's see, performance wise, which will be much effective. .NET Core. Let's see if tomorrow for .NET Core we get the new version, right? The updated features. So we should go with on performance basis, which will be much better.
I don't have measurements on both. What I heard is that we don't see much of a difference of both. The performance is more based on if you build your application more client side or more server side, right? So if you statically render your stuff in Next.js, it's blazing fast. The more you have done on the front end side, of course, it takes more time because you can cache less. I think that's the main driver for performance.
Yeah. Thanks, Sebastian.
Thank you, Chandan. Next one is from Sasanka. So the XM Cloud is like CD environment. If we publish content, cache will clear automatically or not?
Sorry, I missed the last part.
So what is saying that XM Cloud is the XM Cloud is like CD environment. If we publish content, will there be any cache or the cache will be clear automatically?
So XM Cloud is, well, XM Cloud is a bundle of things, right? So it's a product that has a lot of roles in itself, like XP served a lot of roles. So you have a CM instance, and then you are publishing not to a CD instance. So CD doesn't exist in XM Cloud anymore. It's Edge. So you're publishing to Edge. And yes, that will also clear caches, but Edge is also caching the content so it can deliver it to your head application. So you have two layers of scaling, basically. Edge is like a scaled CDN. And then your head application scales as well with your hosting provider. But content is cached as far as it can be on the Edge, yes.
Hey, I have one more question. So how we can handle the personalization rules here? I mean, custom rules on the XM Cloud, because usually we have the rules in the XP, right? We have rule engine, but if you are just delivering the content to the Edge, right? How the personalization will be applicable there?
So personalization in XM Cloud is handled differently compared to XM or XP. It has inbuilt personalization, and so under the hood we have an instance of personalize provided with a limited set of rules, meaning we only support in a plain XM Cloud instance, we only support personalization based on session data. So it's not that we store the data and then you can build up your personalization based on profiles and all of that. So therefore you would have to get a personalized license, which will be unlocked or which will be unlocking your existing connection. So you don't have to do more for it, or you don't have to integrate. It's already integrated. You just get a subset of features in the XM Cloud instance. So front-end wise, if you work with JSS SDK or the headless SDK for .NET Core, this is all handled within the SDK, so you don't have to care about that, basically.
But how can we apply the rules there, custom rules?
So you can't, I think you can't apply custom rules. I'm not 100% sure though, but as far as I know, you can't apply custom rules when you have a plain XM Cloud instance, so no dedicated personalized license. I'm not a personalized expert, so I can't say what you can do in personalize itself if you have a dedicated personalized license.
Okay. Thank you.
thanks, Ashwin. Anyone else have any question? Okay, it seems Sebastian that we are all good. No one have any further question. So
Perfect.
thank you very much for your time. And
Thanks.
we learned a lot of things here. And thank you everyone for joining the session.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yes, nice to have you and happy weekend to everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Thanks
Have a
everyone for joining.